But now it's time for the dungeon debate.
Dungeon debate.
And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about one of the key factors of combat, ranged combat. In the medieval era, there were two prominent types of ranged combat. One was the simple monkey-brained bow and arrow.
Okay.
Just kidding. I love bows.
Let me give...
bows, and then the other one, crossbows.
Yeah, so the question here, which should have been the first thing we said, is bow versus crossbow. Now you can give your biased interpretation.
Bows are for monkeys.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
So yeah, I'll be defending bows.
And I'll be defending
crossbows. No need to cross. Okay. Well, let me just start us out by saying this. Crossbows are just slow guns. Change my mind.
Well, okay. If you think about this, what evolved from the bow? The crossbow. Made the bow such a more deadlier weapon. The crossbow. It's an improvement to the bow. Which in turn, made the crossbow
in some ways.
Guns.
In some ways.
In a lot of ways.
For noobs, it's very good. Because it requires very little training.
What are you talking about?
The bow, the problem with the bow, if we're getting historical here, the biggest problem is that it just takes so many years to practice and develop.
That's hard.
That is very hard, and it's really bad historically. So it's good to give your noobs crossbows and let them fire away.
But if you have a bajillion noobs, they can outrank all of the special.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
But wait a second. What are we talking about? Oh, D&D, right?
Oh.
Okay, so you don't have to worry about training really in D&D. If you're proficient with the weapon, you're good, right? So what we're talking about is what's better, a person that's proficient with a bow or proficient with a crossbow. Bow's better.
But, well, that's not necessarily true, though.
But it is. But go ahead.
It isn't. So there are two types of bows in the real world and in the D&D world. There are short bows, which I guess are like short bows, little baby bow, general bow.
Short bow and long bow.
And then long bow.
Yeah, they're different.
There are three types of crossbows, though. There are simple crossbow, which anyone can use. There are the heavy crossbow, which does the most damage in the game. Most damage ranged attack in the game. And then there's the hand crossbow, which you can hold with one hand. While in every bow, you need two. So you can go with a dual pistol, dual hand crossbows, looking like a freaking... looking like a BA, baby. Freaking, this is child-friendly, so...
Yeah.
Looking like awesome.
A bad aboleth. BA.
A bad donkey.
That's a BD. Okay, anyway. So yeah, you made a good point. There are three types of crossbows, all of which are worse than the bows.
That's not true.
No, okay, so to do a fair comparison, hand crossbows are pretty much their own thing. So they're just a good little like pew-pew thing, right?
Pew-pews.
But if you compare, so you would compare a light crossbow to a short bow, and you would compare a heavy crossbow to a longbow. Those are the comparisons. Two of those are martial weapons, the longbow, heavy crossbow. The other two are simple. So when you compare the two, I will concede that the crossbows deal more damage in a single shot. Okay, but there are drawbacks, and so what we need to determine is, are the drawbacks worth the benefits? So let me tell you why I don't think they are with a crossbow. So yes, you do get to roll, I believe, you get to roll a higher die. I believe it's a 1d10 for our...
It's a d8 for the simple crossbow, which is a d6 for the short bow, while it's a longbow is a d8, and a heavy crossbow is a d10.
D10, right. Yeah. So it's about 2 hit points higher of a roll. Okay, right. So that's the benefit you get. But the disadvantage of using a crossbow, as you know, is you have to load it. And loading is a big deal in D&D. It's a big deal because if you are able to attack multiple times, which most players will be, unless they're really low level, so they have extra attack, you can only fire one crossbow shot. And so what you're really, if we incorporate extra attack, which we should if we want a holistic view to this argument, the bow will actually deal more damage per turn. Because the bow will be able to fire 2 arrows, let's say 2 d8s, while the crossbow will only be able to fire 1 bolt, which is a d10, but 2 d8s versus 1 d10 2d8s is much better. So turn by turn, the bow actually deals more damage. Let's keep talking about the bows, though. The bows not only deal more damage per turn, they also have a higher range.
That's actually a problem in some cases, though.
No, they both have disadvantage on close range.
Well, yeah, no, but the longbow, if anything's between 100 feet, you have disadvantage, while a heavy crossbow is between 80. So the crossbow is
you're saying,
a lot more fit for shorter combat, which most
sure
combat is.
But these are ranged weapons. Like,
right.
What's like, the point of that?
You're not sniping people in normal D&D 300 feet away, right? And 100, normally you're in a room, right? That's like 50 feet long, But so a longbow is actually kind of bad. And it's actually, the rule of it is actually overlooked. If anything gets between you and 100 feet, you have disadvantage. 100 feet is a very big...
That is actually very far. And
it's a very big margin. While a heavy crossbow, I believe, is 80.
Are you sure it's between 100 feet? What are the...
It's 100 to 300. That's a longbow.
What's the maximum range? 6 something? What was it?
300.
No. Okay, well, no. I'm confused by how you're doing this.
Well,
so there's two numbers.
Right. It's 100 and 300. Or it's 100 and 600.
You're doing it wrong. So anything within 100 feet is a normal shot. If anything past 100 feet, you can still hit the target, but you're at disadvantage. If you go past that big number, the final number, it's impossible to hit. The arrow will not go that far. The only thing you're at disadvantage of with ranged weapons is if they're right next to you. But you can shoot.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So the longbow is better. Because more range is only better. It can't hurt you. So yeah, I guess that concludes our argument.
There is an entire feat for crossbows.
They need it. Oh yeah.
That literally gets rid of the loading thing.
Yeah, I mean that's
the loading archetype.
That's really good.
It's really good.
But that's a whole feat you're taking.
But you also get new. I mean, for most, if you're going to ranged combat as your character's thing, right? You would probably want to pour a feat into your range stuff. So if you're good with crossbows, right? Your crossbow's going to be dealing.
But you're no longer this is no longer a fair comparison.
Well, no,
it's like who would win, Superman, or who's someone that's a strong Superman? I can't.
Shazam.
Oh my God, Shazam! I don't know. All right, who's stronger, Shazam or Superman? It's okay. So and then now you're saying who's stronger, Shazam with the Infinity Gauntlet or Superman? It's like you're adding things. That's not fair.
Well, no, but like this feat is for crossbows.
I don't know if that example was necessary. I think we all get
for crossbows user. Of course, the bow would be better if that feat didn't exist. But the fact that feat exists makes crossbows so much.
Well, a feat
it makes crossbows so
feats
deadly.
Can be anything. I mean, there's definitely bow feats. I can't name you one.
No,
now.
There is only a crossbow feat. Because some of the crossbow feat perk goes into the bow.
Or just ranged attack.
Yeah, it's just range attack feats. But that range attack feat it ignores loading. So basically, it's like you could still do the same stuff with the bow. It just basically means you deal
a little more damage.
If you have a crossbow now, you deal more damage.
Yes, but you've just cost yourself an ability modifier to get or an ability score improvement.
That feat's pretty worth it. If you have a heavy crossbow, you can repeater shotgun.
If you really like your crossbow, sure. But again, if you just take a crossbow and you just take a bow and you keep everything equal, so you keep the person the same, right? Because you could have someone who's really good at crossbows. Okay, but that's not fair. So if you take a crossbow, you take a bow. The bow is better. It deals a little less damage per arrow, but overall, it deals more damage per turn and has more range.
Well, I mean, the crossbow's more versatile, as I say again, with the hand crossbow.
And you can target multiple enemies if you wanted.
Well, yeah, that's true, but with the feat, you could do the same thing with the crossbow.
With the feat, but
but that feat is still really strong. We have to talk about the feat.
I know the feat's strong, but
we have to talk about the feat.
Can't be included.
It pertains to bows, too.
If my paper is correct here, it says our debate is bow versus crossbow, not bow versus crossbow by someone who has the crossbow.
If you're talking about the actual physical weapon, then we actually have to talk about history and not just talk about.
I'm willing to talk about history.
Yeah, okay.
But I think we can conclude that it is better in D&D.
Well,
which is whole debate.
See,
we can briefly touch history.
It really depends on the situation. So, for example, you can't conceal a bow and arrow, right? But with a hand crossbow, you can.
A hand crossbow.
Yes,
but a hand crossbow is not nearly as good as a bow. You have to keep it. That's why I said those things in the beginning.
No,
you have to do a fair comparison. What's better, a knife or a great axe? Oh, is that supposed
to... It depends on the situation.
Is that supposed to be axe versus sword?
We are talking about what's the better for use. We're not talking about it's... Because, of course, the bow is going to win if we just talk about its stats.
Oh, okay.
The crossbow has way more versatility.
I consider that a win.
So, assassins normally use crossbows and hand crossbows.
Well,
normal guards
hand
use
crossbows are good.
And plus, if you load it, you can just have it loaded... And so when you get surprised, you can go, like, instantly just fire at will.
There is no bow equivalent for a hand crossbow, so there's really nothing to compare in that sense.
That's an advantage for the crossbow.
Sure, it can be turned into a tiny version, I guess.
You can't... Wait.
No, I mean, yes, I have no argument.
If you also count a ballista, that's technically a crossbow. Okay. That's pushing it, but, like, technically that's a crossbow.
Yeah, I think technically it's a ballista, actually. They're like, it's a ballista.
What?
They're called something different. They're called ballistas. So technically, it's a ballista.
Well, yeah.
The technical term is ballista.
But a ballista to every minded person is a giant freaking crossbow, which is sick.
I've never thought about it that way, so I wouldn't say that.
You never thought about?
All right, it doesn't matter. What's your history?
We're talking crossbows. Actually, what I'm talking about in history is that crossbows are actually easier to manufacture, to produce as well. So it's.
But what?
Yeah.
A bow.
Well, if you think about it, a bow is such a big, especially a long bow. It's such a big piece of wood. Like, you have to find the perfect, the perfect piece of wood. You have to fine it. You have to make the string perfect. So of course, the bow
Let's assume it's easier to make.
Yeah, so it's easier to make and it's easier to use. And in real life, if you get shot by a bow, you can just break off the arrow. If you get hit by a crossbow, it's basically death in medieval times, because if you take it out, you rip off a chunk of your. It's supposed to hook it out. In.
No, arrows can do that too. Those are just different
crossbows
arrowheads.
Are just worse. You can't. There are ways to get rid of arrowheads. There aren't really ways to get rid of crossbow heads because of how they were made. So they're supposed to hook into flesh.
That doesn't make sense to me.
What do you mean?
Because the hooks would be the same. Why does it matter how long the shaft is?
No. It doesn't matter.
You just do the feather technique where you put the feathers on and then pull it out.
The arrowhead is different from a crossbow to
I know it's
arrow.
different, but think about hooks, right? Hooks are hooks.
When I'm talking about the arrowhead, it was shaped in a way where it hooked meat or flesh better than an arrowhead.
But you could put that head on an arrow. Why wouldn't you be able to?
You can't put a crossbow bolt on a...
No, I know that. But you could take the head of the bolt and put it on an arrow.
You can't, actually.
Why not?
Because the bolt is a lot heavier. Because once you think about a crossbow bolt...
Okay.
A crossbow puts in a lot more power than a bow does. If you think about it, a crossbow is basically a shotgun compared to a rifle, I guess.
Not a shotgun.
Well, you know what I'm saying. It's more for shorter range combat. That's what a crossbow is.
There are a lot of benefits to... historically and on a grand army scale to crossbows. There's a reason.
Exactly.
It became better than the bow on an army scale in history. Mm-hmm. Sure. But in D&D, you don't command armies. You command yourself.
You can, though. Which is sick.
You could.
We are talking about bows versus crossbows.
We are. And so on an individual basis, would you rather be a person that's proficient with a bow or proficient with a crossbow? The answer is bow. It's better. It took you longer to get there. That's about it. It's better.
Well, I mean, as I say again, it depends on the situation. If you have the hand crossbow kind of change because the hand crossbow adds the stealthiness to a player. You have stealthy.
It's true.
A rogue can pull it out use it as a Glock, and it's freaking amazing. It's also.
But that's not going to be very helpful in the situations that a bow would be helpful.
Well, a crossbow still does the same thing that a bow can do.
Not as good, though. That's what I'm saying.
Right, not as good, but it's still versatile. You can still
hand crossbow. You're going to do very little damage.
And the fact that they put a feat into, we have to still talk about the feat. If the feat goes into the crossbow is superior.
Yeah, but now you've added a feat, which isn't a fair comparison anymore.
That's what are you talking about?
Now you're changing the person that's using.
You have to qualify everything into the item, right, to make it which one's better. So we're talking about
that's like saying what's better, a 4-year-old using a crossbow or a big strong guy using a bow. Why are we changing the person? Right? You're doing the same thing, but with technique. We're not changing
the person, but
that's... There we are. You're taking someone who's good at crossbows. You're taking someone who's good at crossbows versus someone who doesn't have a feat with a bow.
No, but that feat still affects bows, too.
It's called crossbow. It's called something.
No, they call it that because of the loading thing.
But the loading thing is what you're saying is good. It's not the other stuff.
Well, no, the other stuff also pertains to bows. Basically, I'm saying if you eliminate the loading thing with the feat, the crossbow does more damage.
Yeah, that's like saying if you take the disadvantage away, it's better. Correct.
Yes.
But it has a disadvantage.
If you want to dwell deep into more DM fun stuff, you can put some attachments to that crossbow. More than a bow would.
Sure.
Double repeating, the Chinese had freaking machine gun crossbows.
Yeah, there are some options there.
Repeating crossbows, definitely.
Those are in D&D.
Yeah. They are?
Had a player almost buy one the other day, actually.
A repeating crossbow?
Hey, he was like, are there any repeating crossbows here? And I was like, did not think about that. No. Yes, there are, actually. There would be. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If there's a repeating crossbow. So you see, it's kind of evolution. The bow, fantastic. Crossbow is the evolutionary tree. And then the crossbow became the gun, right? So the crossbow was obviously, if the bow was superior to the crossbow would not exist.
Yes, but right. that is on a societal level, an army level.
Mm-hmm.
D&D is not that level.
But we still, but the crossbow does more damage, and you can conceal it with a hand crossbow, and with the feet, the crossbow.
We aren't the history. We aren't the history bros. We're the owlbear bros. We talk about D&D.
No, but the thing is, we have to talk about historically, because all we're talking about is bows versus crossbows, right?
In D&D, yes.
Yes, but so my argument, you are more versatile with the crossbow. You look freaking sweeter too. It's like a gun. Everyone loves guns.
Okay.
And if you get rid of the loading with the feat, which you get a bunch of new abilities with a bow or crossbow, you become vastly superior to any bow wielder. So Legolas, get out of here. All right. If you give Legolas a repeating crossbow, Lord of the Rings would be a lot shorter.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't.
Yeah, it would.
No, Legolas is insane. So Legolas is a good example because he can fire off arrows so quickly, right? That's what bows are good at.
But imagine if a crossbow didn't have that loading thing. And
it does, but it does.
Right, but with but with the feet, it gets rid of it. So crossbows are better.
No, because you're saying crossbow plus feet. So my final argument, we're at 2 hours. If you're taking bow versus crossbow, which we are, and you're just taking them two on their own and keeping all other variables constant, which is what you do in a good scientific experiment, the bow wins. Done.
I already said my argument.
Yes, you did. All right.
Peace out.
Tell us who you think won. Do you prefer bows or crossbows? And
also, crossbows praise the Lord. There's a cross on it.
Right.
Boom, you got the Lord on.
But that's not necessarily a good thing. And
what are you talking about?
There's other religions and also atheism and also demons.
Demons.
Okay, we are leaving now. But
adios.
We'll be back next week.
Yes.
All right, have a good Thanksgiving, even though it might not be Thanksgiving.
I'm getting a rock-sized turkey.